Good morning, everyone watching or listening to this wherever you are. We are reaching you from the storehouse. But before we go any further, it's important to state what the storehouse represents. The storehouse is not the name of an organization or a religious group, especially in the sense of how many of such practices have plagued our society for centuries till date. We also are in the storehouse. And what the storehouse represents is the reason why it can't be an organization, it can't be a religious group, and it can't be a bunch of people either, but it can only be somebody. And that person represents the help we all have been crying out for and have collectively agreed that can only come from God. And it's the presence of that person that has enabled us to establish this forum, which we hope to effectively reach out to those of you who may be watching or listening to have you locate this help which we have been privileged to have find us. So once again, the storehouse is not the name of an organization or a religious group, and we are just individuals who have been privileged to have this help locate us. And now you can see by the picture that have been painted, the storehouse represents the person of God, because that's what it has been pointing to. Because the storehouse, being the one who has the help that we all have been crying for, is what God represents to us, the help we all have been crying for. So the storehouse is God, the person of God in the midst of the people. But the issue is, in our world today, we have all come to agree that God is not a man. God is not a man. But the question is, do we really understand what that statement means? Because coming from the scripture, it's definitely not what we know it to be, because it has been established that the ways of man and the ways of God are different. And the same are with his thoughts and our thoughts. So with that being the case, there is definitely what that statement refers to in a spiritual sense that we have no idea about. So God is not a man. But first and foremost, we would like to look at what man represents. What does it mean to be a man? In our society today, we have this, misconception that the man is the male being among the human race. But that's not what the man represents. Because when we read in Genesis 1 verse 27, you can see it stated there in the scriptures that God created man, male and female created he them. So you can see first and foremostly, man is male and female. That's what man is. Man, first and foremost, is male and female. So man now, with that instance, represents the spirit that dwells inside of a male and a female. So being man doesn't mean you are the male sex, or being human doesn't mean you are the female sex. No, man is the entity or the spirit that dwells in each and every one of us living on the face of the earth today, be it the male or be it the female. But unfortunately, as men, we operate in a circle that represents our realm of knowledge, and we all think we know something. But the unfortunate thing is, all we think we know is depicted in that circle. And no matter how big your circle of knowledge is, what's outside of that circle is bigger than the circle. Now, with that being the case, we can see that it's necessary that we understand this concept in our world, because it's only when we understand this concept that we can get the help that we all have been crying for.
So, the main focus, like you have said, that man is not the male sex of the human race. Man is both male and female. But aside from that, there is an influence that the spirit of man carries, which makes us man. And that is the influence of sin. Sin is the influence that the spirit of man walks with. That is the influence that the spirit of man walks by, which is why we in this world are known and termed as sinners, because we are walking under the influence of that spirit. So that is what makes us men, because we are walking under the influence of that spirit of man. But the spirit of man with us is that of a sinful spirit, which makes us limited. That is why with no matter how glamorous anything we do, no matter how innovated anything we do is, it doesn't give a desired result at the very end, because no matter what we do, there is always disaster awaiting that. Build beautiful mansions. Before you know, all of a sudden it comes crumbling down on us, even with us living inside. We build aircrafts. Before you know, from the sky, it's down on the ground, killing the people in it and those on the ground. So you see, it shows that the spirit of man being made in sin, being the influence of sin, makes everything that we do as men to carry that stain of sin, which makes it not to work out for us.
You know what you're describing now? What you're describing now is the nature of man. That's what you're describing. But from what was mentioned earlier, so we have it in our society as a saying or as common knowledge that God is not a man, and we have tried to shed some light on the nature of man. Understand that man is not the physical male being you see, but the spirit that dwells in the male and in the female. So, but now we are referring to God, and we say that God is not a man.
I think it's better we read that passage so because the statement, like you have said now, is God is not a man, but that is not the complete statement.
And I'm not referring to it from the Bible.
Okay.
As of this point, I'm referring to it as a saying we have in our society that God is not a man.
Yes.
I'm not referring to it from the Bible as of now.
Yes.
So when we say God is not a man, what we have in our minds and in our heads is that God is not a person, which is why I started by saying we need to understand what man is, because man is not the physical being we see, and man is not the male. Man is the spirit that dwells, or the entity that dwells inside of the male and the female. So God is not a man is the saying we have, and we take that to mean that God is not a person. You see, it cannot be a person. But the question is, if we believe that we have been made in the image and likeness of God, then I don't think, or no, rather, if we believe we have been made in the image and likeness of God, and we find ourselves on the earth the way we are, how then should the God we believe made us look like? Because irrespective of the fact that we can't see him, because we all believe he's a spirit, which is the truth, or which is true rather, he's a spirit. But the question is, if God as a spirit made each and every one of us, and we find ourselves in the face of the earth the way we do, we didn't negotiate with him, he brought us looking the way we are looking, with 2 hands, 2 legs, a head, that means he is the same way, irrespective of the fact that we can't see him, because we have been made in his image and likeness. So God is not a man does not mean that he is not a person, because a person is just the being you're seeing, but what constitutes the person is the spirit in him. So that's saying now, coming from the Bible, God is not a man that he should lie, which is a reference from Numbers 23 verse 19. Say God is not a man that he should lie. that is more like a warning now, because he's saying, listen, you have it as common knowledge that God cannot be a person, but I'm letting you know that God is a person. And because he's a person, the risk of you relating with him as a man, because what makes us men, just as you have stated, is the spirit that is dwelling inside of us, be it the male or the female. So the warning is like, irrespective of the fact that a time will come when you will have God in your midst looking like you, he's not a man.
Yes. Now you made mention of man having a spirit in him.
Yes.
Likewise, God. We are talking about man now having a spirit, but if you look at the man entity, we can see,
yes,
we can talk, and we can relate with each other.
Yes.
Likewise, the personality of God being a spirit. I'm trying to point to the fact that the spirit doesn't necessarily mean what you cannot see.
Yeah.
But there is a way that spirit is made to be seen, and that is how God is formed in our midst. So the spirit that constitutes man is different from that of God, which is what we are trying to emphasize now, that God is a person, but the spirit that is dwelling inside that one is different from the one that is dwelling inside of us. But I'm also pointing to the fact that the spirit, because that's where our confusion and imagination of spirit cannot be seen comes from. Because if you look at us being the spirit, because we are a product of the spirit,
yes,
and once you're a product of something, it means you're in the yes, you're a part of that thing. So as likewise, man being a spirit is what we can see. So is God, but God is the only one spirit that is different from that of what we are all carrying.
You see, because the picture painted now is that man is a spirit.
Yes.
But the man who is a spirit is each and every one of us walking on the face of the earth. So if man as a spirit has his house, which is each and every one of us, yes, the house of man is the house of man is our body, and that spirit inhabits our body.
Yes.
So when we talk about God too as a spirit should have his own house, yes, where he operates from.
Yes.
which is where our issue comes from, because just as she stated, man we can see, relate and talk with, because that man is dwelling in each and every one of us. But when it comes to God, we operate with God like he's in a vacuum, and if he is to come to us, it should be in some kind of form, whether as breeze or as maybe some sort of figure.
Yes.
But just before I go any further, I would like to draw our attention, because you mentioned we have been talking about spirit now, and how we understand spirit to be something we can't see. From the scripture we read that the disciples at some point, that they had themselves locked in the upper chamber where they were praying. The rooms, just from what we can read, though, just for you to have that at the back of your mind, that none of that ever happened, because the Bible is not a book of religious events, a book of past religious events, pardon me. It's a book of prophecy. And it's the book that has been put down by the inspiration of the Spirit for the Spirit, not for man.
Yes.
So back to what I was saying. When we read from the scripture, we can see a picture painted that the disciples at some point locked themselves in the upper chamber, with the doors locked, the windows locked. And from the picture that was painted there, at some point, Christ appeared before them, and they were startled, because everywhere was locked, and there was no means for anybody to get into the room, because everywhere was locked. And they were like, he's a spirit. And at that point, Christ said to them rather,
yes,
say, does a spirit have flesh and bones as he see me have?
Yes.
You see, now it looks like, okay, he's not a spirit because he has flesh and bones. But at that point, he was pointing to them that he had flesh and bones, and they could confirm that he had flesh and bones. But wasn't he a spirit at that point? You see, so it paints a picture that is clear enough for us to see that a spirit doesn't refer to a vapor,
yes,
or something we can't see.
Yes.
But the spirit is what constitutes the person.
Yes.
Because as long as a man, or as long as a body is without the possession of a spirit, I don't think that body can can do anything. He can't function.
That's even when you see when the spirit leave the person, you see that the
Person drops because there's the body can't function without the spirit. But in our case, the spirit we function with is the spirit of man. Why in God's case the spirit he functions with is the spirit of God, which is why it's called the spirit of God, because it can't function with any other person outside of God.
So let's go back to that statement. Let me bring back that statement, the passage they just read, that God is not a man that he should lie. You see that the way he put it, he said God is not a man that he should lie. That means that there's a tendency in man that brings man to be a liar.
Yes.
So you see that in that picture, in that verse, what is written there, it doesn't necessarily mean that God is not a person. God is not a body. God is not. Let me say, God is not a man. God is a man, but he does not have the tendency to lie. You understand? Because there's a first man which is of the earth, is a man.
Yes.
And there's a second man which is of the Lord from heaven, which is God.
Yes.
So God is a man, but God is not a man that has the tendency to lie.
Yes.
By man, this man that we are referring to, which is every man that was brought upon the face of the earth, from that spirit, the source of that spirit, which is the man nature. That's the word called that one man. That is man in itself or himself, different from God. They are both man because it's the origin.
I think they are both person, because when we're talking about man now, we have established what the state of man is and what man and what constitutes man. So it's clear now that if you're going on, it should be God is a person, not a man, because
no, I want to describe a man.
I think for me, I would say based on what we understand man to be in our world today. Let's drive it from that point. Because if somebody listening to us out there, if the person does not understand where we as men are derived from, which is the heavenly things, you will not really understand when we bring in the heavenly things, which is where our emphasis right now is on. You see, we see man to be the person standing, the person you are seeing. That's what we see man. That's why you said that man is necessary to understand what man is. That man is the spirit that is living in everybody on the face of the earth.
Yes.
And that is what man is. It's a spirit that is in everybody. For somebody to go down to the depth of the sea today, to know how to find whatever thing that is in the sea, that he wasn't the one that put it. He must be that spirit that take the person down there.
Yes.
That's why he said that the ways of the man is not of himself. How can he get to understand his step? You see, as we are not of ourselves. We are like an empty container.
Yes.
That's how we put it like that.
Yes, that's how it is.
So there is something in us that takes us to walk. And that is where you see the man.
Yes.
And in the man, he gives us a limitation. Everybody is limited.
Yes.
Based on that spirit of limitation. That is the way the spirit of creation, the spirit of the Lord, the overall program, the first stage of the work.
Yes.
Because all we are talking here is a program that the spirit engineer. He engineered the program to confess with man, which is the spirit, not the body. But because of the knowledge that we have in our world, because of the knowledge of that same man, because I don't know, I keep saying sometimes, I don't know how to put it for somebody to understand, because when you are talking about man, you know that we are not referring to the body standing.
Yes.
Because before now, we know man to be the body standing. You understand?
Yes.
But in the body standing, we call it, there is a Adamic nature, there is a nature in the man. So for us, we think that the body is the man, but there is another nature in the body. I don't know why you understand the point.
Yes.
So we don't know that the man is even the spirit in the body. So today we are now trying to let everybody to understand that the man is the spirit that is driving everybody, both the male and the female. Now, that body now, which is where the man is the same body
Yes. That God's
where God, the spirit, will dwell in. That is the body that the Spirit give approval to, the Spirit of the Lord. Yes. Give approval to function as the one overall, the one with the power. With that, you know, when you give an approval to somebody, everything that the person is going to do, we think it good. But when you don't give approval to somebody, it means anything the person is doing, as long as you have not approved that person, is wrong.
Irrespective of how nice it might look.
So that is where our limitation is, and that is where God comes in. But you see, because of the nature and the spirit that we have, and the knowledge that the Spirit has driven to us, we now see the man to be the body standing. So even when the God is coming, we have this concept in our head, that imagination, I will call it, in our head, that God is not a man, means God is not somebody that you will see. You see? But we don't know that God is a person in whom the Spirit has given approval to, that will now come and help the man that is limited from. So to say God is not a man, which is not even the statement that is made in the Bible, because for you to see God, you must see a person.
Yes.
But the function of that person must be different from the function of everybody in the whole world. That's what makes God. It must be different.
Yes.
For you to know that the ways of God is not the ways of man. If that person comes in and exercises his way, it cannot be the way that me and you will exercise.
Definitely.
The limitation we have, such a person will never have a limitation, because the limitation we have, it is from him that is going to give us a guide on why we have the limitation, on how we're supposed to follow for that limitation to be taken away. That is now because we are now functioning according to the spirit that it comes with. You know, we are working according to the spirit that we have. So, and we are supposed to now be working according to the spirit that the person of God comes in. So when we use the word the person of God in our word, we think that it's one man that God ordained. We don't know that it's even God in a person. You know, those are the languages that we speak in our word. But today, we have come to understand that, oh, the one that will name everything for the purpose of, the good purpose of mankind, is that God himself.
Yes.
So, to say God is not a man, with our knowledge out there, is that God can never appear as somebody. But let's go back to how the very spirit has already programmed it, which we now carry our own concept and think that, oh, the God is something that has come before and somebody did it. That's when you enter into those, you see the things that is put here, that there is no how a generation can have God without a person being born with them. You can see it in Matthew 1. I think I would like us to read here.
Okay.
Matthew 1, from verse 20.
Matthew 1, verse 20. Are we there?
Yeah.
Okay. But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is the Holy Ghost. Should I go?
The Holy Ghost.
Is of the Holy Ghost, pardon. Should I go further?
Yes.
Okay, 21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. 22. Now all this was done, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophets, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us.
Is, which being interpreted is.
Yes.
Let me take it again. Verse 23. Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us.
He said all the process that was going on there.
Yes.
Because no matter what we read today, it's still in the book. We are still reading a letter. But this letter also trying to point to us that the God we are looking for, or we are weeping for, or we have been shouting for, there is no way we can have God without somebody with us. If you check that process, you see that there is a process that brings God to the people there.
Yes.
Now the question is, if all this thing was done to fulfill that prophecy and to mark the beginning of God with the people, ask yourself, all this while, where was God with the people? Because the people also claim that they have God.
Yes.
Because you cannot say that you have God with you and somebody just appear and the Spirit tell you this person now mark the presence of God with you. I don't know whether you understand.
Yes.
That is the presence of God with the people. But that was a writing. So the fulfillment means no matter how a generation is crying for God, and how do we even cry for God? We cry for God to come and help us.
Yes.
We never cry for God because God is there. It's just the confusion that sometimes you see somebody sit down to say, let us invite the Holy Spirit. You don't know that the Holy Spirit is the one that the God comes to.
You see, and even like that, he's not there. So that's why we are inviting him to come.
He's not there.
It's a clear picture.
He's not there because if he's there, the solution that the world is looking for
Will be there as well.
Bro, Savior said something before. He said, when he was talking, he said, let's look at the function of this person. Because it is from what the person will come and do that will show you a work has been done.
But he said, if you don't believe what I am telling you about who I am, he said, believe the works. He said, look at the work. It's not because I say it with my mouth.
So
look at the work I do. Yes.
Those things are still a writing to show that no matter how somebody talks to you about a personality that is God,
yes,
nobody needs to argue. What we just need to do is to come to that person, listen to the person, and see the work that will be going on from that person, how the thing will turn out. Then we can now use our mouth to know, or ourselves to know that, oh, this person is even more than what we think.
Yes.
You get? Because it's not a title for a person. It's a kind of a function that somebody must carry. That is why we keep using the word name, the name of the Lord, the name of the Lord. It is a function that somebody must carry.
Yes.
But you see, all these things, we don't know them in our world.
Yes.
We don't know.
And no matter how much you read of this book, you can't know those things. Because just as we have stated, the only way you can even come to have or come to hear of something like this, not even the practical aspect of it, but coming to hear of something like this, you can't hear that from the book. Like just as it stated in the same book, that the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. You see, and the spirit can't be inside of the book. The spirit, just as we have stated, needs to be in a person. Which is why in John 6:63, I think I would like us to read that. I would have just just quoted it, but I would like all of us to read through it. Yes, John 6:63. Yes.
Are we there?
Yes.
It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirits and they are life.
You see, it's now we see before we all claim to read this book, to follow what is in it. We try to, or we claim that our life, our living pattern has been adopted from the book. You see, but we can see it clearly stated there, and that because of our nature as man, we can't decipher what has been written in the book. And because of that, we try to apply our own knowledge as man to the book. And because the book is not written with the knowledge of man, and we try to use the knowledge of man to apply what has been written in the book, it amounts to a lot of misconception and misdeeds. Yes. You see? So it's like a clear advice. Let me even put it that way. Like a clear advice. Like, listen, say it's the words that I speak to you. They are the spirit, because coming from me, being that spirit of God, being that spirit that that should render help or salvation or redemption to mankind, the only way you can have the help that comes from me is when I speak to you.
So that is what has to be fulfilled.
Yes, because it's clear, because you can't even get these things without the person on ground. For instance, there was the prophecy of a Messiah to come. You see, but the people were living their lives in a way that that warranted them to cry for that Messiah. They were weeping and crying for the Messiah, hoping for him to come and do what? And change their ways and save them from the way they were living, which is what we still cry for today, because none of that ever happened. Because if he had come and done the work which we claim he has done by reading this book, we should see the manifestation of those things in our world today. But because we don't see them, it's a clear indication that none of those things happened. But it's unfortunate that we have failed to see it that way. But instead, we are like, he's coming again to do another sort of work. Doesn't it go against our belief in God that whatever he does is forever? You see, it goes against that, because we always profess that what God has done is forever. Nothing can be added nor removed from it. And we claim that he has come and done all these things, and we can't see any of that.
I think that's the reason I was trying to make an emphasis on that numbers. That God is not a man that he should lie. That word "should" comes with God, that he cannot lie. This thing that we just illustrates now, that if this thing is something that has happened by today, we shouldn't be talking about this. That means that when it comes to God, everything that he will do, even though you will not understand, you may call it to be is lying or whatever. He said, if it is God, that he cannot lie. That is should, is that he doesn't have the tendency to lie. Whatever he says must come to pass.
And you see, the only possibility of having whatever God says to a person to be a lie is because of the knowledge that we already have.
And it is to the detriment of the person.
Because if our knowledge was right and God comes, or if our knowledge was the truth and God comes being the truth, whatever he says to us, we will not have any problem with it, because what the life we are living is already the life of truth. But because the life we are living is a life of lie, when God now comes with his truth, we tend to now use our lie to judge the truth, which now makes the truth to seem like a lie. Which is why this thing we say, children say from the beginning, is a warning. This is not just a statement that was a warning. That see, you people have been living a life of lie. That is how I made you banquet. For me to come to bring my truth into the world through God. And it is only when this God comes that truth can be established on this earth. So this person that I'm saying that is God that will be my truth will be a person among you. So don't use your knowledge that you have gathered, because we have lived in this world for centuries with this our lying state. So don't use this your living standard, this your lie nature, to judge the things that God will say. Because if we come to think of it, lie itself, what is really lie? Is lie what we say? Lie is not in what you say. Lie is the state and the spirit that we were made in as man. It's not in lie is not gotten from what you say. Because even if in this world, even if you give an account that if somebody goes to verify it is as you said it, that's how it happened, that thing is still a lie. Because that is who you are. That is why he says that God is not a man that he should lie, because he does not have that spirit of lying in him. So even if God can choose, because I've seen, because I want to bring this as an instance, because I want to use this instance based on what we know as lie. Because in the world, you see, there is what we know as white lie. To tell somebody a white lie. And what is the concept of that white lie? You see, you are telling that person that white lie because there is something you know that if the person knows the real thing, he will not be able to get the result, the good result that you wanted for that person. So you give that person a white light to keep that person comfortable so that you can be able to have a chance to do something.
Like a placebo.
Like a placebo, thank you, like a placebo. So if you even talk, I'm using this as an instead of what we know as lie. If you even, let me tag that to God. If God is to come, as we have known, as we have established now that God is a person, if God as a person is coming to do a work in you, and from the way you are, because everybody is different, how this world, man's world has affected everybody is different. So if God comes and seeing you the way you are, because he's the only one that sees everybody for you,
Yes.
he sees that this person, for me to really have a chance, for this person to really have a chance to have my help, I need to follow this person like this. And you don't know that way he's following you, it will change as the course goes on. He will bring out the real thing. But at that point in time, you need that push to keep you strong, to build you up. That is why faith is what you is. That is what you need to grow in. You need to grow in faith. Your faith needs to increase because it's as things go that it will strengthen you. That when you see the harder parts, that you can now have a chance to withstand. So if God, I'm bringing it so that we will see a picture, because if God now comes with that approach of that white lie, based on what we know lie to be, and he applies that concept with you, and you manage to pass that hurdle that he saw that made him use that, and after you have passed it and grown, he now comes back to, even if he might not necessarily tell you, but he might choose to say, okay, you remember when I did so. This secret is not like this, so this is how it is. So you see, in your mind, you're like, oh, that was not what it was really about, but this is what he told me. So at that point now, that can you really say, or can you really tell what God did to you as he lied to you?
Even if that is how it is, the person that will even lie to you supposed to even be God, because
Yes.
the lie that, from what you are explaining, the lie that God will lie to you will save you.
Yes. So
But
that
the
is
truth-
not a lie. You cannot
Which
even
is not a lie.
But the truth that man will tell you will destroy you.
Yes.
Because I want to set an example like from the home that we are coming from. If my so-called parents want to give me like drugs back when we were small, what do? If I don't like to use tablet, these drugs, they will bury the drugs somewhere. They put it inside maybe
Gary, food that you're eating.
food that you want to eat. Sometimes they grind and put there. They do, once you know that is the drugs, you not like to take it. So they do it in a way that
You won't know.
you won't know. That is the lie to me to give me the drugs. Because they want me to get well.
Yes.
That is the purpose of that thing. They want me to get, which is what we are trying to explain now. If we are living a life that is not according to the purpose that's supposed to, okay, let me use the word if we are living a life. If in our living, so-called living, we need life, and we are living this dead living, and God knows that where we are going to is a destruction that is waiting for us, and we don't know. Now, the way He will bring us out from that path, we will not know from the beginning.
Yes.
But that is what He's trying to do.
Yes.
What I'm saying so is that I can use myself to say a example. No, we are sitting down here today to talk about God. When the whole thing began, that was not what we see. That is why I said before. This person did not open mouth to say, I am God. But as you follow, you keep seeing that, oh,
It's only God.
it is only God that can do this.
Yes.
Somebody will say, how do you know that it's God that can do that? See, this thing we are talking, a lot of men can talk. A lot of people can talk. But remember, there is one thing in talking, there is another thing in having the power to do it.
Yes.
That is why he said, as he said a thing, and shall not do it.
Yes.
Because whatever thing he said, that is what will come to pass.
Yes, that makes sense.
You know, for us man, we want that thing to not even to come to pass now. Right? That is the problem of man. So when you tag the person like where you are, I'm not even sure that if you are following God and God is a person, I'm not even sure that you'll be confused that this person is lying to you. But because of that nature of man out there is where we see that God is not a man, means don't see a person that is looking like you as God. Because he will lie to you, that he will tell you something that is not true. That is why we have established the fact that a lie is not in the things you say.
Yes.
Because if it is in the things you say, every good thing we say, you see coming from that corrupt tree that
Every nice things, we could not call them good.
That's why I said, if we being evil know how to give good gifts to our children, the question is, can a good man,
Can a bad man?
can a good man bring out a corrupt food? The answer is no.
No.
Can a corrupt man bring out a good fruit?
No.
So the tree that he's talking about is us.
Definitely.
When you read the Bible, you say, no, it is safer for you to know the tree first before you can know the fruit.
Yes.
So the people will say, by their fruit we shall know them. By their fruit we shall know. And when we make that statement, we attribute it to God. When God people or when God is coming to do a work. Now you are man. We don't have an idea about God.
Yes. How do you surrender?
Now you quickly you know the fruit of God.
Yes.
The fruit of man said we don't even know. Because, I'm telling you,
Yes.
because we are living a life today as man
Not knowing that.
under iniquity, but we can't see it
Yes.
as man. So how will we now use that man imagination to imagine the things that have to do with the spirit of God? It's not possible.
It's not possible.
So the confusion is just continuing. That is why we have said that the only opportunity that we have in this world is to have God with us as a person, which is the cry that we have been crying for.
Yes.
So when you say only God can come and help us, I don't know how God is going to come and help you. Whether he's going to come looking like a cow or come standing like a
Crocodile.
If it has to come, what is that thing that has to come? If it is a
You see?
yes.
So we expect God to come and help us. And sometimes we think that, okay, the person that God will send to come and help us from will be maybe like this governor, or maybe like this man that want to go for president, or maybe this man that want to go out that is a pastor. Now, let's say the marriage of the spirit, you can't separate them.
Yes.
Because I and my father are one. That's what he said.
Yes.
And he said, if you love me, keep my saying, and I will come and make my abode in you. I will be coming you and do it. That's where I am.
It's
That's
where you are.
That's what he's saying.
Yes.
So, how do you expect to be, or God to be, or a person of spirit to be? Because if you are looking for God as a spirit, let's say God is a spirit, and the spirit doesn't fly, you know that the spirit lives in a person. And you go to a man who calls himself the man of God, a pastor. What do you expect to see from that person? Is it not God walking from that person or in that person? So like I said, there is no way we can get help in our world without a person. Because the reason why we go to men, those men that we think that they are men of God, or they are men that sit in an office that look like they can render solutions, is because we believe that there's a capacity in them. So, and the only way there can be a capacity in somebody that can help the people, what we call help. That is why we have said before that help is not assist me in the things I do. No, that is not help. Help is a personality and help is God. And God comes to help when we, like now, everybody is crying because we have seen that there is nobody that can render help for us.
Yes.
There is nobody that can render the solution. Because if there is somebody that can render solution for us, the problem we are seeing today, we would have gone. It will just disappear. But that is because it's only help that we need. And help is God. And there is no way we can get that help without God being with us.
And if you even look at the issue of Naaman in the Bible, that was looking for solution in the entire world, to really see that God must be somebody. And we used to say that God is everywhere. God is not everywhere. God has where He's stationed. That spirit has where He's stationed. So you see the instance that was there in the Bible, that Naaman was looking for help, which is God that can render that help. He looked around all the earth, and suddenly he met a person, a prophet, that now told him about a personality which is God.
A damsel.
A damsel,
Yeah.
that told him about this personality that is a picture painted there. So it was when he went to meet this person that they introduced him to. That was when he now found out that this person is God. You can hear me say this person. That means it was a person.
Yes.
In the picture.
So now I know that there is no God
Anywhere except in that person. So Israel, when he said except in Israel, if it was an open space, it would have been anywhere he goes to, he can meet the person. But even in Israel, if Israel is the entire people, why is it that the entire people didn't have God?
The question is, was Naaman in Israel? Is Israel today? No. So that's why, from what you just said, Israel, that name Israel, was given to one person before we now see a country today. That's why we have said before that the names that are put in the Bible are not title for people or title for a country. They are significant for something. Just like when we have Jesus. Jesus is not a name of a person. Jesus is not a name of a person. It means something, which will also explain as our moment proceed.
And if you even see this thing now, you see this statement I just opened up an illustration in my head. He said that there is no other God except
there is no God anywhere.
There is no God anywhere.
Now I know that there is no God anywhere except in Israel.
And that is because of the person he met.
Yes.
I said, what I'm saying is because if it is that person, if it is because of that person that he met that maybe he made that statement. Let's say, for instance, from the picture, that person was in Israel. If that person moves from Israel to America, has that entity of God not moved from? Will that entity of God that is saying that is no other place for Israel, will it still be in Israel when that person is no more than in America? Because it's not the country that made him make that.
Is the person.
Is that person. So if that person decides, okay, I don't want to be in Israel again, I want to go to America, would that make him to change his mind to say, okay, there is no other God except in America? To show that Israel is not a place, it's a person,
you see,
a function of a person.
There's something that I wish we can read that scripture, but let me put it something that you mentioned. The way he put it, he said, now I know that there is no God in all the earth.
Yes.
That is because God is not in the earth.
Yes.
And earth is not this surface.
Yes.
When we keep talking about man, who man is,
Yes.
and we say that man is the one living in us, that is earth. So we as the earth, God is not there.
Yes.
So where you see God is in heaven. That body, that is why, look at where you see a picture painted. Somebody was born, or somebody is born, let me not use the word was. But I use the word was because of the picture, but I'm not going to use that again. There's a picture painted. Somebody is born from the picture, from a mother with siblings, brothers and sisters. That is the Jesus that we keep learning.
Yes.
And he's telling them, I come from heaven. You know, they pick up stones to stone him. But see, all those things are significant of something. I'm not going to that detail yet. But I'm drawing a picture from what is written there. And he's telling them he's coming from heaven. The question is, what makes that person that you just see that we born the same mother? What makes that person come from heaven? You see, that is why we have said before that the things that is meant for man are for man. The things that is of God is for God. And there is no way men can understand the things of God without God being a person showing himself as God in the generation to show us his way. You see, but the picture that we painted is that God is one mighty thing. Yes, it's mighty. It's mighty. But the mighty is not in the size. The mighty is in the capacity, because when you see him, you can step on him. That is why those cautions are there. Those cautions are there.
God is not a man that he should lie. Like my sister was trying to paint a picture. That statement is a warning.
Big warning.
It's a big warning, because Men lie. Just like we have established that the spirit inside of us is the spirit of man. And that spirit is a lying spirit. Why is this spirit a lying spirit? The one who made him like that, so that he cannot bring solution to the world that he made. Why is man a lying spirit? If you look at the effort of humanity from the inception of man on the face of the earth, you see that man has been trying with all his strength and might to save situations. So because he is the spirit of lie, it cannot work. Because we said that man is the very spirit operating in the person. It's not the person you are looking at. It's the spirit inside working, doing things. That spirit have established governments in nations. That spirit have established offices that he said, before you enter into this office, you must swear. There is a swearing in. And there is an instruction in this book called a holy book in Matthew 5:34. Swear not at all. But the government of the entire world, I'm talking about the government of man who is a liar. Before you enter into his office as man, the spirit that is in everybody, before you enter into his office, you have to swear, going against the instruction of God. That is why everything you do in that office, if you are elected into that office, whatever you do to solve problem, it cannot work. So you see that the people that is being led by their fellow men, they still cry. Even after they've elected them, voted them into that power, they still cry. Why? Because it is a lying system. It is the system of man. He is a liar. He will promise you everything, protection. He said that as a citizen of a country, it is your fundamental right to be protected according to the constitution. But you discover that when you are maimed, when you are killed, the constitution is there, written constitution, because it is there, it cannot help, it cannot protect. You find out that the constitution cannot help you. Why? Because the system is a lying system. So when it is said that God is not a man that he should lie, it talks about the character of God. God, since the system of man has been proven to be a lying system, the spirit that brought man now said, your help will be in God. God will be somebody. But beware, even if he looks like you, he is not a man that he should lie. Because everything he will do and live for will be to redeem this man that have been crying. Everything he will live and represent and do to you will be to save you in order for you to have the life you cannot have. My brother Chiduben was talking about the image of God. We believe we are created in the image and likeness of God. Look at us. Let's look at our character. If you know that you are made in the image and likeness of God, look at your character as man. You discover that with the atrocities going on in humanity, nobody can affirm that to the character of God. That is why men are still crying for God to help them. Meaning, God will come with his character to show us how to live with one another. So that the spirit that is in us, that limits us from living the way God wants us to live, he is the one to remove that spirit in us. So that the new spirit, which is the spirit of God functioning from him, will begin to function in us. The spirit of God must have a station. The spirit of God must have a station. And that station must be in God. That is what will establish the presence of God. The spirit of God cannot function in the vacuum.
Yes.
It must function in somebody.
You can't have the presence of God without a person.
So that person that he is functioning from is where you will get the presence of God. Like my sister said, like my sister Dugo said, he said, if the prophets which is Elisha, which is the significance of, the meaning of Elisha is God our Savior. If that our Savior moves from Israel to another country, what happens? That means the station, the presence of that God has moved. That is why it is not Israel as a country, it is a person.
Yes.
So this is the help that we've been crying for. And he has decided it is time to save his world. If you are listening or watching, the time is now. The one who will change us, help us, save us, he cannot lie. Because as he has started the work will last for eternity. And no man can stop him. So he cannot lie, meaning everything he has decided he will do from that person, he must do.
Yes.
If you stand to doubt it, it is to your detriment. We are not saying this because we want you to believe. We are saying this because he has come to save his people. You did not bring yourself into this world. I did not bring myself into this world. We did not all bring ourselves into the world. The one who brought us has said it is time to save his people. So if you are out there and you've been worshiping God, you've been crying for him to help you, you've been confused about the things in the Bible, confused about the things of the Spirit of God, the time has come.
Confused about what is going on in the world.
Confused about what is going on in the world.
Not even what is written in the Bible.
Yes, because he is the only one to now show us the way and bring us out.
And that's the way it has to be, just as you have stated. Yes. That's the way it has to be. Because we have been trying to emphasize on the importance of having God as a person in our midst.
Yes.
That's what we have been trying to emphasize on. But unfortunately, with men, the problem we have is that we have been programmed to immediately and it's like we have been programmed to immediately and automatically reject or counter anything which we hear that doesn't fall or align with our already established principle or understanding.
Sorry for coming in. I think I won't take it like that because see, everything that is going on is a program in man. You understand? The only challenge is that nobody has seen the part of God coming here. Nobody. What we are seeing in our world today, you can see in internet, see what men are saying. A lot of people are talking about the things that are supposed to be. They are talking about what's supposed to be. Some of them are trying to encounter what is even going on. The system that is going on. To tell you that this is not the system of God. Some people are like, there are people like that. So that is because the time has come. Why I said I won't take it that way, that there is nobody that will not see, that will see what is good. Will not embrace it. Why? What is good is not making money. It's not making money. If you watch the life you are living today, it's said, you see somebody want to go and buy something. You need food to eat. You go to buy food, they tell you this food is 1,000. You see somebody who price you 500. That is because the person pricing that 500, with that, this thing should come in a way that it should help you. Nobody would say, let me give you 2,000 for food that somebody tell me is 1,000. So that consciousness of how things can be good is in everybody. But the problem is that because the God has not come here to establish that. So it is when this establishment now comes in that we can now say men are just programmed in a way that they can oppose anything good. Because there is nobody that has the power to oppose God.
Not to counter what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah? But I was looking at it from an angle because we have established that men want things to be okay, which is why we cry for God. It's because we want things to be okay.
Yes.
But because we cry for God, doesn't mean that we are willing to accept his ways when he comes. We cry for God doesn't mean that we are wholeheartedly, in acceptance of his way he's coming to establish. Because our cry for God is not because we are willing to accept his ways. No, our cry for God is for God to come and make things okay for us based on our expectation and based on our already established life principles. That is our expectation of God. We are not expecting God or crying for God to come and change the system, the way we are living. No, we are crying for God to come and make the system bearable for us,
for example,
to make the system livable for us.
For example, there is where Christ in the picture painted in the Bible was with the people, and he said, destroy this temple. They were still waiting for God to come and help them, in the sense of what you're saying now. But you see the people murmuring among themselves, say, this thing we have worked for
years.
Yes. Which means the men were expecting God to come and increase in their expectation.
So that's why I said what I said earlier, that men are programmed to counter things which they hear that don't fall under their circle of knowledge. That's why I said what I said, based on this line now. Because the picture painted there was that they were expecting a Messiah, and the Messiah came not the way they were expecting.
Yes.
And he was living a life showing them a way that will remove them from the crisis. And they kicked against him. That was the picture painted there, though none of that happened. But it's this picture that enables us to see the nature of man in each and every one of us. You see, so he came, supposedly, did the things he was doing, and living a life that contradicted the already established ways of men, and they kicked against it and sought to kill him. Today, we believe he had come and we believe he has died, but the question is, especially to those of us or those of you who are watching, was the Christ we celebrate today, was he killed for being the Messiah, or he was killed for claiming to be God? Or let me rephrase. The Christ or the Jesus we celebrate today, was he killed because that was what was expected? He came to die. Was he killed because he was that Messiah that needed to be killed for the world to change? Or he was killed because he professed to be God? I leave that for you to answer. But it's clear for us to see what the answer is from the scripture. That he was killed for claiming to be God.
He didn't die.
He was killed. You see, so that is so that's why I said that
the nature in man. Yes.
So that's why I said what I said earlier. That we are not expecting God to come and establish his own ways. We are expecting God to come and establish himself on our own ways. So that's why the appearance of God now, or us, saying that God cannot be a person, is on that same line.
Yes.
Because we see the God or the person of God being in the midst of us to pose a huge threat to the way we enjoy living our ways.
Yes.
You see, so we prefer for him to be a vacuum, to be air or whatever, or to be some sort of statue or graven image that we can command. Because God as a person, what it signifies, God being a person, what that signifies, it's unimaginable for man to see that actually, that's practically be. Because we can understand what that power holds.
Yes.
That's why we talked about government, we talked about ministers, the position that they are in, the power that they function with in that position, and that is with men. But the power that they function with, you see how we follow after them because of that position and the power that they function with. So imagine God now to be a person in our midst. We see that, and we can't fathom how possible we can let a person wield all this power, because we believe God to be almighty and all powerful. So we can't fathom how a single person should wield all this power and command the whole of humanity.
Yes.
That is That is the big problem we have. And just as we said in our previous forum, that is the hardest pill that man has to swallow. That mankind has to swallow.
Based on what you just said, for example, for me to know this is God, for him to come and support me in what I'm doing. Like if it is against what I'm doing, that means it's not God. You see, in our world today, what we know this God to be is that when he comes, any business I'm doing, anything I'm doing, if I'm doing this one, I'm doing this one, when he comes and supporting me in my business, that makes him God. But when he comes to pick against that thing I'm doing, to give me a better one, it's not God. You see the problem of having this a lot.
And does that matter?
That doesn't matter to God. What matters, what he came for, what he came to do in my life. God will not come and continue in my way. So what will make him God? What will make him God and he comes and continue in my ways, in this my ways? No. Now, what would actually bring us in? He mentioned some government, presidents, our higher leaders that we know that when somebody is the higher authority, you know how to respect the person. Like for example, your pastor, you say, good morning, sir. Good evening, sir. This one good, sir. When you come to God, how do I say God is not enough? You can't come to God, ask God how I do. Because he's looking like you. You can't see God. Or you want to bring your hand. Even if you join with your hand with your leg, you want to shake God. You can't see God and do that. That make him come different. So we can't treat God when we treat our fellow man.
That picture has been cleared that God is not a man. And that statement, as much as it's a warning, it's also a piece of information that God is God. God is not a man in the sense of what we have already explained or established. Man being the spirit that lives in us and carries out all the activities that we see going on around the world today, which we have still seen, or which is the reason we call for God. So God is God. But God being God is as a person in the midst of the people. That is the only way things can work. And that is the already established principle, which is why in the whole of the scriptures, as we can read, in generations as it was put here for us to see, though picture-wise, there was always a person in the midst of the people whom they always had to listen to get the guide on how to live in accordance to the way of God. And if that wasn't the way the Spirit has originally programmed his help to get to man, I don't think that picture would have been created. And I don't think the picture of him having to go to the extent of sending his son, supposedly, to be in the midst of men would have been needed. So what that clarifies is that for the help of God to be with the people, or for the life of God to extend to the people, that God has to be a person in our midst for that to happen. And with that being the case, we have come to the conclusion of today's forum. But if you would like to reach out to us, we have our email addresses on the screen. And from there, we can establish further communication based on what your requests are. Until we see you next time.